You felt something, and your mom said you shouldn't feel that way. You cried, and she told you to stop making a scene. You were afraid, and she said there's nothing to be afraid of. You got angry, and she said you had no right to feel that way. Each time that happened, something inside you died a little. Carl Jung spent decades studying how children develop narcissistic traits, and he discovered that one of the most devastating, and yet one of the most invisible causes, mothers who never validate their children's feelings. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how this invalidation works. I'll explain why it's so destructive, and I'll give you tools to heal this wound, whether it's in yourself or to prevent it from happening to your children. If you grew up doubting your own feelings, this video might finally explain why. Let's start with the basics. What does it mean to validate a child's feelings? Validating doesn't mean agreeing. It doesn't mean approving. It doesn't mean the child is right. Validating means recognizing that the feeling exists, that it's real, that it makes sense from the child's point of view. When a 5-year-old cries because their ice cream fell on the ground, the feeling is real. To them, in that moment, it's a tragedy. The adult knows it's not the end of the world. But the child's pain is genuine. A mother who validates would say something like, "I know you're sad. You really wanted that ice cream." A mother who invalidates would say, "Stop crying over spilled milk," or "You're overreacting." The difference seems small, but the consequences are enormous. Carl Jung observed that children need to have their feelings mirrored. The mother functions as an emotional mirror. When the child feels something and the mother reflects it back, the child learns that their feelings are real and valid. When the mother doesn't reflect or reflects in a distorted way, the child gets confused. They feel one thing, but are told they should feel another, or that they shouldn't feel anything at all. This creates an internal division. One part feels, another part says it shouldn't. And this division is the beginning of many psychological problems. Now let me show you the 5 most common forms of emotional invalidation. The first form is direct denial. You're not sad. You're not afraid. You're not angry. The mother simply denies that the feeling exists, tells the child that they are wrong about their own internal experience. This is deeply confusing for a child. They feel something in their body, something very real, but the person they trust most in the world says it doesn't exist. Over time, the child begins to doubt themselves. If mom says I'm not sad, but I feel like I am, then I must be wrong. My feelings aren't reliable. This doubt about one's own perception is one of the hallmarks of narcissism. The person can't trust themselves, needs constant external validation to know what they feel. Carl Jung described this as estrangement from the true self. The true self is the real center of the psyche. When the child is repeatedly told that they are wrong about their own experience, they disconnect from that center. Start looking outside for what they should find within. It's a form of internal exile. The person is in themselves, but not with themselves, lives in their own body, but constantly distrusting it. The second form is minimization. It's nothing. You're exaggerating. Some people have real problems. The mother doesn't completely deny the feeling, but says it's not important, that the child is making a scene, that they shouldn't be so affected. This teaches the child that their feelings are excessive, that they are too much, that they should feel less. The result is a person who is ashamed of feeling, who hides their emotions, who thinks that any strong feeling is proof of weakness or imbalance. Many narcissists learned in childhood that their feelings were too much, so they built a mask, a persona that seems to feel nothing, that seems above human emotions. But underneath the mask, The feelings continue to exist, just repressed, denied, never processed. The third form is comparison. Your brother never throws a fit like this. The other kids don't cry like that. Look how well behaved the neighbor's kid is. The mother uses other children to show that the child's feeling is inadequate, that they should be different, that there's something wrong with them for feeling this way. This creates deep shame. The child learns that they aren't how they should be, that their emotions make them inferior, that they need to hide to be accepted. Shame is one of the most destructive emotions. Carl Jung saw it as a wound at the core of being, a feeling that there's something fundamentally wrong with oneself. Many narcissists carry this shame and compensate with grandiosity. If deep down I feel flawed, I need to prove to the world that I'm special. The fourth form is punishment. If you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. Go to your room until you learn how to behave. You're grounded until you stop this tantrum. The mother punishes the child for having feelings. The emotion is treated as bad behavior, something that must be eliminated through negative consequences. This teaches the child that feeling is dangerous, that expressing emotions brings pain, that it's safer to feel nothing. The result is a person disconnected from their own emotions, who has learned to anesthetize themselves, who can't access what they feel because the price was too high. Carl Jung called this state dissociation. The mind separates from the body. The feelings exist, but aren't felt. It's as if the person lived behind glass, observing their own life without really being in it. This disconnection is a form of protection. If I don't feel, I can't be hurt. If I don't attach, I can't lose. If I don't care, I can't be disappointed. But the price is living a half-life, without pain, but also without joy, without fear, but also without love, without vulnerability, but also without real connection. Many narcissists seem cold, distant, incapable of empathy. It's not that they were born that way. It's that they learned that feeling was dangerous, and they turned off that part of themselves. The fifth form is inversion. You make me so sad when you act like that. You're killing me with this behavior. Look what you make me feel. The mother transforms the child's feelings into guilt. Instead of focusing on what the child feels, she focuses on the impact it has on herself. This is particularly insidious because it seems like the mother is sharing feelings, seems like vulnerability, but it's actually emotional manipulation. The child who came seeking comfort suddenly finds themselves having to comfort the mother. Their feelings become secondary. The focus shifts completely. Carl Jung referred to this as parentification. It's when a child takes on the role of emotional caregiver for a parent. Usually their mom. The natural order is reversed. The one who should be caring ends up being cared for. The one who should be cared for ends up doing the caring. This overloads the child with a responsibility that isn't theirs. It shouldn't be theirs. It's a weight they carry without understanding why they're carrying it. This teaches the child that their feelings are a burden to others, that expressing emotions hurts people, that they are responsible for their mother's emotional well-being. The result is a person who carries chronic guilt, who feels responsible for everyone's emotions, who suppresses their own needs to take care of others. This might seem like the opposite of narcissism, but Carl Jung saw a connection. The inverted narcissist who lives to please others has the same underlying wound, the same inability to trust their own feelings, the same need for external validation. Now let me explain why this is so destructive. When a child has their feelings invalidated repeatedly, something fundamental breaks: the ability to trust themselves. Carl Jung called this a wound to the true self, The true self is the center of the psyche. It's who you really are. When feelings are invalidated, the connection with the true self is severed. The child stops trusting their own perception, stops trusting their own feelings, stops trusting themselves. And this is the foundation of narcissism. The narcissist doesn't trust themselves. That's why they need constant external validation. That's why they depend on the gaze of others to know who they are. That's why they oscillate between grandiosity and emptiness. Carl Jung observed that this lack of trust creates a kind of insatiable hunger. The narcissist seeks in others what they should find in themselves, seeks confirmation, approval, admiration. But no amount of external validation is enough, because the whole is internal and can only be filled from the inside out. When someone praises the narcissist, the effect lasts seconds. They need more and more and more. It's never enough because it doesn't reach the place that really needs to be healed. If they could trust themselves, they wouldn't need any of this. But their mom taught them that their feelings were wrong, that their perception was flawed, that they couldn't trust their own judgment, so they seek outside what they should find inside. And it's never enough. Because no external validation can replace the connection with the true self. Now let me show you how this invalidation is transmitted between generations. The mother who invalidates was usually invalidated herself. She learned that feelings are problematic, that emotions should be controlled, that crying is weakness. When she sees her child feeling something intensely, it activates her own pain. The child she once was, who had her feelings denied, begins to awaken. It's too painful. So she does to her child what was done to her. Stop making a scene. You're overreacting. It's nothing. It's not malice. It's survival. She's trying to avoid the pain of confronting her own history. But the price is passed on to the next generation. The child now carries the same wound and will probably pass it on to their own children. Carl Jung called this generational transmission of complexes. The patterns pass from parents to children, from generations to generations, until someone decides to break the cycle. Breaking the cycle requires awareness, requires seeing what happened, requires feeling the pain that was avoided, requires doing the difficult work of healing. This work is what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, separated from the expectations and projections of others. It's a long path, painful at times, but it's the only path to true freedom. Individuation includes integrating the shadow, the part of you that was rejected, the feelings that were invalidated, the parts of yourself that you learned to hide. When you integrate these parts, you become whole, complete, no longer divided between what you feel and what you should feel. It's important to understand that the mother who invalidates isn't necessarily a bad person. Frequently, she's doing the only thing she knows, repeating patterns she received, trying in her own distorted way to help. Some mums invalidate because they believe they're teaching resilience. They think that by saying, "Stop crying over spilled milk," they're preparing their child for a hard world. Others invalidate because they can't handle their own emotions. The child's emotions awaken their own unhealed wounds. And invalidation is a way to protect themselves. Still others invalidate because that's how they were taught. Because in their families of origin, emotions were seen as weakness, as something to be overcome, not felt. Understanding this doesn't excuse, but it can help to heal. Anger has its place, but at some point, understanding can bring peace. Now let me tell you about the signs that you were emotionally invalidated in childhood. The first sign is doubting your own feelings. You feel something, but immediately question if it's real, if it's exaggerated, if it makes sense. You need external confirmation to be sure of what you feel. The second sign is difficulty in identifying emotions. Someone asks how you are, and you don't know how to answer. You know something is wrong, but you can't name it. Your emotions are a vague confusion instead of clear signals. The third sign is shame for feeling. When you feel something intensely, you immediately feel ashamed. Think you're being dramatic, try to hide or suppress. Judge yourself for having emotions. The fourth sign is feeling responsible for the emotions of others. You carry the weight of the emotional well-being of everyone around you. If someone is sad, it's your fault. If someone is angry, you did something wrong. You exist to regulate others. The fifth sign is difficulty in establishing boundaries. You don't know where you end and the other begins. Accept treatments that you shouldn't. Can't say no. Your needs always come second. The sixth sign is seeking external validation obsessively. You need others to confirm that you're okay, that you're good, that you have value. Without this confirmation, you feel empty, insecure, non-existent. If you identified with several of these signs, you probably experienced significant emotional invalidation in childhood. It's important to know that these signs don't mean you're defective. They are normal responses to an abnormal environment. They are adaptations that made sense at the time. The child who learns to doubt their own feelings is protecting themselves. If my feelings are wrong anyway, it's less painful to find that out alone than to be told by my mom. The child who stops identifying emotions is anesthetizing themselves. If I don't know what I feel, I can't be invalidated. These adaptations, they served a purpose. But now, in adulthood, they've become prisons. It is possible to escape them, but it requires conscious effort. Now let me give you some tools to heal this wound. The first tool is internal validation. Learn to do for yourself what your mom couldn't. When you feel something, acknowledge it and tell yourself, it makes sense that I'm feeling this way. My feeling is real and valid. At first, this will feel strange, artificial. Your mind will resist. It'll tell you that you're being dramatic. Stop crying over spilled milk, it might say. That's the voice of your internalized mother. The part of you that learned your feelings are wrong. Gently, disagree with it. Continue validating your feelings, even when that voice says you shouldn't. Over time, internal validation becomes more natural. You start to trust yourself again. The connection with your true self, it rebuilds itself. The second tool is the emotional journal. Write down daily what you felt. Name the emotions. Describe where you felt them in your body. Explore where they came from. This helps you reconnect with your emotions. It helps you see them as valid. It helps you understand your own patterns. Don't judge what you write. Don't edit. Don't try to be rational. Just record what you felt, exactly as you felt it. The third tool is seeking healthy validation. Find people who validate your feelings, friends, partners, therapists who respond with recognition instead of judgment. It's not dependence, it's a legitimate human need. We all need external validation sometimes. The problem is when it's the only source. Healthy relationships include mutual validation. I see what you feel. It makes sense. I'm here. But be careful not to fall into the opposite extreme. Seeking validation compulsively. Depending on others to know what you feel. The goal is balance. The ability to self-validate, combined with connections where validation flows naturally. If you realize you're seeking validation obsessively, that you can't feel good without external approval, that's a sign that the wound still needs attention. Continue the internal work. The excessive dependence diminishes as self-validation increases. The fourth tool is working on the inner critic. Identify when the voice of invalidation appears. Note what it says. Recognize that it's not your true voice. It's a voice you learned. Then, consciously, challenge that voice. You say, I'm overreacting, but my feeling is real. You say, I shouldn't feel this way, but I have the right to feel what I feel. With practice, the critical voice gets weaker, and your true voice, the voice of the true self, gets stronger. Carl Jung described this process as differentiation, learning to separate what's genuinely yours from what was imposed. The critical voice was imposed. It's not yours. It's an intruder that settled in your mind and pretended to be you. When you realize this, something changes. You stop identifying with the criticism. You start observing it from the outside, and you can choose not to believe it. This doesn't mean it disappears completely. It may continue talking. But you no longer have to obey. The fifth tool is specialized therapy. If the invalidation was severe, self-help may not be enough. A therapist trained in trauma can help you access and process deep wounds. Look for someone who understands emotional validation, who practices in the session what you didn't have in childhood, who offers you the corrective experience of being seen and accepted. Therapy works in part because it offers a relationship where your emotions are consistently validated. This rebuilds what was damaged in childhood. It teaches the nervous system that it's safe to feel. It's not quick. It may take months or years. But each session where you express something and are validated instead of invalidated deposits something in the account, little by little. You start to have enough internal reserves to self-validate. The sixth tool is the practice of emotional mindfulness. Learn to observe your emotions without judgment. Simply notice what you're feeling, moment to moment, without trying to change or suppress it. This reconnects you with your body. Emotions live in the body. When they were invalidated, you may have disconnected from that physical sensation. Mindfulness helps you reconnect. Start with a few minutes a day. Sit in silence. Notice what you feel in your body. Name it without judging. I'm feeling tension in my chest. I'm feeling tightness in my throat. Just observe. Carl Jung practiced something similar. He called it active imagination, a state where you come into contact with the unconscious without judgment, where you let emotions and images flow without trying to control them. This requires courage, because you'll find things that were repressed, pains that were avoided, memories that were hidden. But it's through this encounter that healing happens. What was rejected needs to be integrated. What was denied needs to be recognized. What was invalidated needs to be finally validated. You can do this alone, in meditation or writing, or you can do it with professional help, in therapy. The path depends on the depth of the wound and the resources you have available. The important thing is to start. Each small act of self-validation is a step in the right direction. Now let me tell you about how not to repeat this pattern with your children. If you were invalidated, there's a real risk of doing the same. Not out of malice, but out of automatism. Because it's all you know. The first thing is to be aware of your triggers. When your child's emotion bothers you too much, stop, breathe. Ask yourself, why is this affecting me so much? It's probably activating your own pain, your own history, your own child who was invalidated. Take care of yourself before responding to your child. Validate yourself first, then, with more calm, validate them. The second thing is learning validation phrases. I see that you're sad. It makes sense that you're angry. That must be hard to feel. I'm here with you. Practice these phrases. Use them even when it seems strange. Over time, They become natural. You don't have to agree with the child's behavior. You can set limits. You can redirect. But first, validate the feeling. The third thing is tolerating discomfort. Seeing your child in emotional distress is uncomfortable. The instinct is to make it stop, distract, minimize, stop crying over spilled milk. But emotions need to be felt to be processed. If you interrupt them, they get stuck. Learn to be present with the discomfort, yours and your child's. Without trying to fix it immediately, just be there. The fourth thing is apologizing when you're wrong. You'll mess up, you'll invalidate sometimes. It's human. The important thing is to recognize it. I said you were overreacting, but I shouldn't have said that. Your feelings were real. I'm sorry. That teaches the child that mistakes can be repaired, that relationships survive failures, and it retroactively validates what was denied. Now, a final reflection. The mom who invalidates usually doesn't know she's doing anything wrong. She's repeating what she received, doing the best she knows how with the tools she has. That doesn't mean you can't feel anger. You can. And your anger is valid too. In fact, anger is frequently the first step in healing. For a long time, you weren't allowed to feel anger toward your mom. It was forbidden, dangerous. So you directed that anger toward yourself. Anger turned inward becomes depression, self-criticism, self-sabotage. And when you finally allow yourself to feel anger at what was done to you, that energy is released. It can be directed toward healing instead of toward destruction. But understanding the origin can help to heal. Your mom was hurt too. She passed on a pain she didn't know how to process. You can break the cycle. You can heal your wound. You can do things differently with your kids or with the children around you. And that's perhaps the most revolutionary act a human being can do. Breaking a pattern that comes from generations, deciding that the pain stops here, that it won't be passed on. Carl Jung saw this as a form of redemption, not in the religious sense, but in the sense of transforming suffering into consciousness, of using pain as fuel for change. Each generation that breaks a destructive cycle changes the destiny of all the generations that will come. Your children won't carry that wound, neither will your children's children. The entire lineage is freed, and you are the one who does it. With each conscious choice, with each moment of validation, each time you stop and breathe and decide to respond differently than your parents responded. This doesn't happen all at once. It's a process, daily, constant, of choosing repeatedly. To validate instead of invalidate, to connect instead of disconnect, to embrace instead of reject. Carl Jung believed deeply in this possibility of transformation. He saw people heal wounds they'd carried for decades. He saw generational cycles being broken. You can be that person, the one who chooses consciousness instead of automatism, the one who does things differently, even when it's difficult. And by doing that, you heal not only yourself, you heal your entire lineage, the past and the future. Carl Jung said that when an individual becomes conscious, it affects the collective unconscious, that the healing of one benefits all, that each person who does the inner work contributes to the evolution of the entire humanity. That might seem too grandiose, but think of the people you know who have gone through profound transformation. It didn't just affect them, it affected everyone around them. Their family, their friends, their colleagues, their children. Consciousness is contagious. When you heal yourself, you give permission for others to heal too. When you validate your feelings, you teach others to do the same. You may have started this video thinking it was about moms, about the past, about what was done to you, but actually, it's about the future, about who you can become, about what you can do differently. The invalidation you received doesn't have to be your destiny. It can be your starting point, the place from which you start to build something new. Until the next video. And remember, your feelings are real. They are valid. They make sense. Even if no one has told you that before. I'm telling you now. You have the right to feel what you feel. You always have. You always will. No matter what they said. No matter how many times they invalidated you. No matter how deep the damage was, your feelings are the compass that guides you to the truth about yourself. Trust them. Honor them. They're yours, and no one can take them away from you. That's the first step in healing, believing that your feelings matter, even when the world says they shouldn't.